We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Gabriela Lira is with us. She's a real estate agent with Compass. We're talking about the real estate market. And this, during the break, is kind of interesting. I don't know where you come. When you think about moving, and maybe you're never going to move again, you're in a home, but when you did move, what are the elements that you consider when you choose to move into a new home or maybe condo or an apartment, especially home, something you're buying, not renting? Okay, so you talked a bit earlier. Okay, you're going to look at, well, if I'm going to have children, I want to know what kind of schools. I guess you're looking at public safety and what that's like. Do you have sidewalks? But in terms of looking at the home itself, you may have an idea of the decor, the landscaping, or what you want, but how much do you consider neighbors or how close the homes are built to one another? How often do your clients talk about that?
They talk about that a lot. So it is a matter of personal preference.
But does anyone like having their home 5 feet to the home next to you?
I don't know. I wouldn't say that someone likes it, but they're willing to live with it, right? And we talk about the perfect home meets the 80-10-10 rule. 80% you love about the home, 10% you can change, and 10% you can live with. So that, to me, falls into the 10% you can live with. And here's the thing. When you go to see a house, maybe you're there 30 minutes, and then you're expected to make a decision. Like, yes, I want this house. Let's place an offer on this home or not. So what we have our buyers do before we even go out shopping is we do a list. And it has 4 columns in that list. It's must have, would like to have, should not have, and must not have, right? Because if you have from the beginning a clear understanding of what it is that you're looking for, it is going to make it so much easier when you have only 30 minutes to walk through a home to figure out whether it meets all of your requirements or not.
Okay, so how often do you sit down and do this list? Most people should have something like that in mind. And you'll look at the list. Now, are there sometimes you've gotten lists and you're like, this just isn't possible?
Sure.
Or, I mean,
sure, and that's why people hire me. I'm not a yes man. They're not hiring me to tell them what they want to hear. They're hiring me to tell them what they need to know. And so if one of their items, one of their requirements is just unrealistic, I will tell them that and give them solutions and say, well, perhaps not this, but we could do this or this.
Okay, so you have to compromise to some degree on that.
Oh, yes.
Okay, the different kinds of homes, talked about, you know, buying real estate, buying the smaller homes, where you'd go for those. Is there even a market for tiny homes now? Remember, that was kind of the craze for a while, and I know that there's tall skinnies. Would those be homes or condos? What would you call those, tall skinnies?
They're homes.
Okay.
They're homes or townhomes if they're attached.
Which, again, is something we see more and more, especially over near the new soccer stadium and the fairgrounds, where, you know, these homes have been bought out, and then all of a sudden, boom, and the whole idea behind that is you can wedge more on there than...
Sure, they're building for density.
You're building up. So how are those doing? Is that tailed off? And the whole concept of tiny homes, have you ever dealt with one of those?
I have never dealt with a tiny home, but I have heard of tiny home communities, but they are further out. Like Mont Eagle, for example, is one place where I heard there is a whole community of tiny homes, and that's cool, and someone might like to live in something like that. But once COVID hit, we were trending towards smaller living spaces. When COVID hit, that completely changed. And now people are looking for more space, because if there is another quarantine, Lord forbid, then you're stuck in this very small space, perhaps with your entire family, and people have gotten a taste of that, and they don't want that anymore.
You know, I hadn't even thought of that, but that's a great point. Plus, things have... Whether COVID comes back, or gosh forbid, we have another pandemic that requires us staying home, a ton more people now are working from home. Okay, that's just the way it is. And so for that reason, you think more people are looking for larger homes simply because even if it's just a husband and wife, if they're both working from home, they need space?
So I'm going to tell you guys about my personal situation because this explains this very clearly. So my husband has always worked from home, but when the pandemic hit and my office shut down, I had to work from home also. So we thought, oh great, we'll share an office. So we put in a second desk in his office, and when we were both on the phone, it was so awful and distracting. Neither of us can focus on our own conversation. I was quickly sent to the dining room table, and that was my office. Then the gyms shut down, right? So I had to create a little gym area in this hallway landing that we had, and it became very apparent very quickly that we needed more space.
Yeah. Okay, so that's you just found out the hard way.
Yeah.
As you went through this. So a lot of people are getting to that point now where
Yeah.
they're looking for, because it used to be the old adage. I still remember a friend of mine, and this was like maybe 2 decades ago, where the whole real estate adage was buy more home than you really can afford. And I'm like, what? And it's like, well, because in the long run, it's going to be a good investment. It's always going to be more. And I remember he did. He ended up buying more home, but eventually, I think it turned out to be a good investment for him, especially as he and his wife had kids. But have you heard that phrase? I don't know if you still go by that, but it was back then. Literally, buy more home than you can afford, which flies in the face of obviously what happened when you had the market crash and people were taking on loans they should never have gotten in the first place.
That's correct, and I have not heard that. That is pre my time in real estate, but I would never ever recommend that anyone buy more than they can afford, and that is just not in real estate. That is in life in general.
Yeah, okay.
Stick to what you can afford.
Okay, so just stick to that, but still people are looking to buy more house if they can afford it, which I never understand it. You have a nice big house. I've not been there, but I've heard about it. But why do 2 people need a house that's 5,000 square feet?
My house is 4,000
I wasn't
square
referring to
feet.
you.
And it is just 2 of us. But think about the rooms we need, right? We need 2 offices.
Okay.
We need
Because you both work at home. I
Yes, we
understand
need
that.
a home gym. Our dogs, they run that joint, let me tell you guys. And they need their own room,
Yeah.
of course. And I understand we need some guest bedrooms. We live a very spoiled life, and I am every day grateful for the life I've worked hard to get. But I'm not the typical situation.
Okay. As far as wanted to get back, because I had some people just text me, and I've talked to some friends, again, going back to the scenario of the younger couple getting started. To get loans, and I know you're not a bank officer or anything like that, but if you're working with them when they're starting to pursue a loan, about how much money do you have to earn, maybe the couple combined, to qualify for $300,000?
Yeah, there's so many factors,
Okay.
right, that
Let's say they have good
influence
credit
that.
going in. They're young people, though. They don't have a lot of credit built up, though.
And again, to your point, I'm not a mortgage broker, but I'd say somewhere in the $40,000, $50,000 range.
Okay, so, and which in this day and age, 2 people working decent jobs right out of school may be able to get that way. And that's the thing is, too, would you say that rent is so high now.
Very high.
You can, if you can find the property for the right price, your mortgage, which you'll be building equity on, can be as much or in some cases less than you were paying for rent.
And I have seen that happen before. I have helped people buy homes whose mortgage is less than what they were paying in rent,
Right.
because rent has become so incredibly expensive over the years.
And so when they do that, it's a great savings in the long run. But also on top of it, it's just, to me, sitting and thinking every month you're paying, whatever, $2,500,
Yeah.
$2,000. There's no equity at all. It's just gone.
And you're building equity, and it's such a great way over time to build wealth. Or, you don't have to get into the house of your dreams right now. Just get in. Get in somewhere because
Right.
your home will appreciate and you will gain equity, and you're paying off your mortgage over time. So 3 to 5 years from now, you can turn around and sell it and then take that money and put it into your next stepping stone, right? Like your bigger house that's closer to your dream home. You can do this in steps. You don't have to jump into your dream home off the bat.
All right, so when you said that the market's kind of slowed down a bit, but the prices haven't really gone down that much yet. Now, I don't
That's
know,
right.
maybe it'll change more. Last time you were on, you don't believe that the national market is, when we had people bidding above the asking price, so in some cases more than $100,000 above the asking price, you don't believe there was a bubble, per se. So,
Fundamentally, this time around is very different than last
okay,
time.
and explain then what a bubble would be and how it is different.
So it's different because when we did have the market crash of the past, lending practices were incredibly different. They were doing no income verification loans. Just watch that movie, The Big Short, and you will get a world-class education on what really happened during the bubble. But they were lending money to people who were not credit worthy. And that is why so many people got into trouble. Now, because of that, as a result of those poor lending practices, there are so many regulations in place. So anyone that is out who actually is pre-approved to buy a home, they have gone through a process of pre-screening and pre-qualification to ensure that they are actually credit worthy and that they can afford this house. So the buyers of homes out there are a completely different pool of buyers.
Yeah, but, all right, now that may explain why we won't have another just horrible crash that just destroys our economy. But if people are paying $100,000 above the list price at one point, and the price is coming down again, the issue here is going to be, could they turn around and sell that home for what they just bought it for, or do they end up losing money on it?
Well, that is the situation in any market. Whether it's a normal market or a super hot market, you have to keep your home for, I would recommend, 3 to 5 years.
I was going to say 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, before you see any type of appreciation. So if you turn around and want to sell it 6 months from the time that you purchased it, then you're going to lose, because just selling costs themselves.
Closing costs and all that kind of stuff.
Realtor expenses, closing costs, those will all eat into your potential profit.
Okay, but like I said, just paying more for the value of a piece of property that it just frankly is not really worth that much, even though you'll tell me it's whatever someone's paying it is worth it. At some point, the market gets readjusted, and these people who paid a ton more for something that they just really wanted, as long as they're going to stay there forever, I guess it doesn't matter, but they paid too much for what they bought.
So this is also what happens, right? One person pays, they're all cash, they didn't need an appraisal, they pay $50,000 over, and maybe the home is not worth that, but the next home that goes for sale in that neighborhood uses that house as a comp. And so the values of the entire neighborhood go up at that point.
Okay, it's crazy how that works. Marie, good morning. Hi, Marie.
Hi.
What can we do for you?
So I have a question about investment properties, and if Gabriella has any opinions about what are some of the good areas to buy investment properties for rentals and Airbnbs.
Okay, good one. Investment. I have some friends who years ago bought apartments and stuff down around Bandy and stuff, and that's something that they use as an investment property. They have a constant flow of income coming in, covers their mortgage, and they make a little more beyond that.
Yeah, and we just talked about how rents are at an all-time high. So if you are in a position to invest in real estate, you should definitely do that. And again, it depends on what your budget is. Do you want to buy a rental in a more stabilized area like Green Hills, or would you prefer to buy in a more transitional up-and-coming area where, sure, you'll get the money from your rent, but you also get higher appreciation? So what we do is we always talk to the person buying, the investor, and say, what are your goals here? And depending on those answers, then we can guide them. Well, you're better off buying a rental in the Nations or in East Nashville, which have high rental rates, or if they're more conservative, perhaps you want to buy in a more stable area like Green Hills, Forest Hills, Brentwood even, and get those families coming over, reloads that don't know where they want to buy yet, but they want to feel the neighborhood out, right? There's even a market now for luxury rentals. So that's another place where you can play. Again, it depends on what your goal is, what your risk tolerance is, because if you say, you know what, I'm young, this is my first investment, I'm willing to be riskier, then we might even put you, but my budget is lower, we might put you somewhere in North Nashville.
Now, someone like Marie, though, if she's individual, is she competing with these big companies that are coming in here trying to buy up rental properties left and right in these neighborhoods?
Sometimes she will be doing that, especially they like Those companies love single family homes.
Yeah, what are they doing? Are they coming in and buying up whole streets if they can?
If they can, but whole streets don't go up for sale
I
at a
know,
time usually. So they find subdivisions that they really love and they wait till those homes come on the market and they start buying many in that subdivision. And what I've heard is that sometimes they'll try to identify an entire subdivision as it's being built and just try and buy that entire subdivision right away. And for that builder or that developer who owns it, I mean, that's great because they get to sell it all off all at once instead of individual homes.
And then these companies that do that, are they typically then turning around and selling them, or do they rent them?
Oh, they rent them.
Okay, and so there's a difference sometimes. There's nothing wrong with rental, but a rental neighborhood, is there a difference between that than a neighborhood that has people that own the properties?
I would say so. It's more transitional. A lot of times we say that, if it's yours, you take care of it very well because you know what it costs to get it. But if you're renting, a little dent here, a little scratch there. So maybe it's not kept up as it would be if it was an actual owner living there.
Absolutely. We got to take a break, but it's a generalization, but you're absolutely right. Given a choice between living next door to someone who's renting or who owns, I'm taking the owner 100% of the time. We'll take a break, be back, our final segment with our guest right after this. So what other universities did you apply?